I was just going to follow up on that. I think from my perspective, one of the big reasons why we have trouble graduating so many of the folks we recruit is has a lot to do with student services and maybe the fact that a lot of those will show underfunded. I think on average the U of A alone is underfunded about $39 million a year. Where do you foresee us being able to make up that gap, or do you think we can make up that gap in funding?
At some point, you have to at least try, because this is, after all, a land-grant university, a public university. And it may come as a shock to you, but when the whole concept of state-funded universities came along, the idea was that you could come here and you wouldn't pay anything because it was a state university. But bit by bit, the politicians in Little Rock, and it's not just Arkansas, this is a model around the country, unfortunately, state legislators said, well, we really could use that money for a new road, or we could use that money for, a dam, or we could use that or buy ourselves all new cars, or whatever. And bit by bit, they started charging tuition, and it got bigger and bigger. And of course, once you start something like that, the only question is, will there be a tuition increase this year? It's really a shame what the cost of public education has become, because originally the idea was that, hey, the government of the United States gave Arkansas the land and said you can have a college here on the condition that you train your people in the useful arts and agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to have to be some sort of, we're going to have to look at new funding mechanisms. And yes, that probably means some kind of tax. The state legislature is going to have to figure out what that is. We didn't think they'd ever get over the hump of an adequate education at the elementary and secondary level. And I'll tell you right now, not so long ago, we were 49, 48, depending on what year it was, if the decimal point moved a little bit. This year, our overall educational ranking is number 10. Most of that's because of the incredible achievements we've made in pre-K and elementary and secondary education. We haven't addressed the post-secondary yet. But because they were able to come together and figure out pre-K, elementary, and secondary, it gives me hope that they understand that it can be done. What role does the federal government play in that? Direct subsidies for reducing tuition, probably not going to happen. But expanding Pell Grants, the change I mentioned of the going back to the direct student loan program rather than having everything farmed out to the large banks, can help. Universities are going to have to, in some ways, reinvent themselves, because if you look at the money, a lot of the money is being spent on stuff the question should be, before you allocate $1 to a college or university, is, okay, what part of this dollar will go to actually educating students? And it doesn't take long, and it's not just the University of Arkansas, but in higher education, for you to figure out there's a whole big chunk of the dollar that doesn't go to have anything to do with educating people. And I think universities and colleges have to look at that themselves and reinvent their own vision of what they should be spending their money on.